3, 2, 1. Okay. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. I'm not sure what the time is where you are. But welcome again to the Mentorship Series by Zaza Development Initiative, Living Letters. Yes, so I've had questions about the term or the phrase living letters a number of times. And for us at Zaza, it's about having people share their lives with us while still living. A lot of times we get to celebrate people or read about people's bios or life's work after they're gone. We have people do written works of people or documentaries about people's works after they're gone. But for us, we're focused on ensuring that young Africans get to experience the life of other young Africans while navigating through life and while they still have them. They could follow up to ask questions. They could see how relatable these people's lives and journey are to theirs, and also build on what they have been through or what they're even navigating through. So, welcome again, everyone. My name is Zugwai Tagwai. I am the team lead for Zaza Development Initiative, and we are focused on building a generation of young Africans who are able to bring about sustainable growth across all sectors, across every industry in their various communities and spaces. And we do this through our mentorship series, which is monthly. We also do this through, it's virtual also. We also have physical and informal mentorship guidance for young people. We also work with a community, an adopted internally displaced community, where we offer mentorship guidance for them. We carry out welfare visitations for them, and we also engage them in literacy projects to be able to ensure that they are engaged whether it's job opportunities, business opportunities, or even just engaging with other people across various communities. Technology is key, literacy is key as we grow, as we develop, and the fact that they are internally displaced persons does not mean that they should not have access to opportunities. So we try to engage our host communities. And our host community is here in Abuja. It's Wasa community. So we work with them to build their capacity and equip them. So today we're having two very amazing young Africans who have done great work and are still doing great work. I am very, very privileged to have come across them in my life. First person here is Kabota. I met Kabota in 2022 during the Mandela Washington Fellowship. Kabota is from Zambia, and we had such a great time during the fellowship in the US. And I got to learn so much from him. He's doing a lot of things around justice system, especially for young people. And we will be getting to hear so much more from him. I met Maima while I was still growing. I met my Ma in the university, my 100 level. She was such a light. When I always say representation matters, Maima is a young African. She's a young woman. She is from my state of origin. And this was someone who stood out in everything she was doing back in school. And for me, that meant so much. It was looking at someone and saying, she's doing it, it means I can do it. It doesn't matter what anyone says. And following through even after school, this is almost decades past, and she has stayed consistent. And for me, that means a lot. I don't know how she's here, but I'm grateful to both of you for agreeing to be here. I know you have so much to do, but thank you. So, to dive right in, I will just go ahead to read the bio for Kabota. So for Kabota is a resolute human rights lawyer with over 8 years of experience advancing the rights of incarcerated children, promoting access to justice, and advocating for the protection of vulnerable populations With a solid foundation in both national and international legal frameworks, Kabota has worked across sectors, including civil society and international organizations, to ensure the legal empowerment of marginalized communities. He has considerable experience fostering national and international civil society participation, engagement, collaboration, and the goal of enhancing access to justice, fairness, and transparency in the justice sector. He has engaged in legal reform initiatives, contributed to policy development on child justice and child protection, and provided free legal services to children in conflict with the law. Kabota is particularly passionate about ensuring that children's voices are heard in legal processes and that justice systems are responsive, inclusive, and child friendly. Throughout his career, Kabota has worked closely with organizations such as GIZ, Irish Rule of Law International, and UNICEF, providing technical support, training legal practitioners, and conducting research. He holds a Bachelor's of Law degree from the University of Lusaka and is currently pursuing a master's degree in human rights with a focus on children's rights and justice sector reform at the University of London. He's a 2022 Mandela Washington Fellow and an alum of the Young African Leaders Initiative South African Regional Center and a Canon Collins Scholar. Whew, please, a round of applause virtually. Thank you so much for being here. This is a lot. Woo! Let me catch my breath. Okay. Now we move to our next mentor, who is Maima, and we're going to also be going through her bio. Maima, her full name is Jemima Talatu Angulu. She is a dancer. She is a dance educator, a choreographer, a founder of the Crum Studios in Abuja. With 15 years plus experience, she empowers youth and individuals through movement and social impact. She's an alum of Broadway Dance Center, New York, Lagos Business School, and the Academy of Women Entrepreneurs. Trust me, this is just an abbreviated version of my mass profile. There is so much more where this came from. I hope we get to hear from them as they engage with us. So, straight to our conversation today. We have a couple of questions for our speakers, and we hope that we are ready to learn. Please take out your pens, your books, your notes, and if you have any questions or comments in the course of the conversation, just pen it down. When we are done, we could just follow up with these questions. All right, so we will be starting our conversation with Maima. So for Maima, we will just want to ask, you are a founder, and for young people, that is a huge word. That is a responsibility. That is a lot. We just want to understand how the lessons you've learned um, in the course of building Chrome Studio, in the course of building this track record, in the course of building what you have and sustaining the creative enterprise in Africa, especially because dance is not something that we're used to as a pathway for career. And also because you started this in a time in Nigeria where it wasn't so acceptable by parents, by peers, or even the society at large. So, what are the lessons you've learned while navigating the building of these track and career path, and also sustaining this enterprise within Africa? You
Thank
have
you
the
so
floor.
much. Thank you so much, Zigwai. First of all, can everyone hear me? Am I clear?
Yes, very clear.
Okay. All right. So first of all, I'm so happy to be here, and I know that we have a limited time. I'm so excited about the initiative that, mentorship is also very key for me, and connecting it with the question you've just asked. Um, there's just so many lessons that I've learned. One of it is that mentorship is really key. I have constantly seen my studio as a training ground. Initially, I wanted it to be a space where dancers will live out their dreams and become who they were. At a young age, I knew what I wanted to be, but I also had the privilege of being trained with some values that helped me get work easily, that helped me to become a person of impact on my own. And I had navigated life like that. So, opening my studio, I thought, bringing dancers in and allowing them to become, by giving them a platform, was something that was going to come easy. But I found that one thing that was key was that a lot of dancers just had the passion, they had the desire, but there was no other thing that came with that. There was no there was no foundation because there were no training institutes. There were no mentors. They also didn't have like a belief system, just like you said. Parents were skeptical. So one thing I decided to do was treat my studio as a space where people can, first of all, get foundation, not just for the skill of dance, but also for the skill of life, tools that will help them to become. So, for instance, we teach entrepreneurship in my dance studio. We teach branding in my dance studio. And so there's so many other topics that we teach. We teach things that help them build their creativity. That's one. There's so many lessons I've learned. And you spoke about um, parents not being that time, it wasn't something to look forward to. So I've actually had to also train mentor parents. I've had parents that, probably their children came and they wanted to dance, and then they were having a lot of conflict issues at home. And so I had to also work out a system in which the parents would understand their child a little better and connect with their child a little better so that the child can be functional both at home as well as in school, even if they were chasing a career in dance. And I've seen through these stages, there's just so many lessons, and I know that we don't have time, but I think I want to stay on mentorship. I also want to stay on the fact that I've learned to train my audience. The what people see online is so limited to understanding what dance is. And so when people come for dance, they don't know what they need. And so along the journey, I've had to train people, mentor people, as well as train and mentor my audience through awareness, education. After they've probably watched a dance piece, I get them involved, I get them to ask questions. There's so many lessons in my 15 plus years. I'd like to stop there so that I don't take so much time. But please let me know if you want me to go on with that question.
Thank you so much, Mama. Oof. Okay, so I hear you say it's not just about direct mentorship of the people, but also the people around those direct participants that you get to meet. And I think that's something that most times we do not consider. A lot of times we're just focused on just the direct people we get to meet every day, but then we don't consider the people who are around them, who might be people that inhibit their engagement with us. And that is a lot. That is a lot. And that is very important. Um, Thank you so much for that. We will still come back to you. So now to you, Kabota. Um, not same question, but still in that same light. You've done a lot of work around the justice system, championing justice for children, and for me, that's also something very unique. A lot of times we're just focused on general justice system for people, adults, or even for political issues and all, and there's no focus on children. um, what are some of the reforms, key reforms you believe are very urgent, most urgent for Africa's justice system, so that we have a legal system or a justice system that is more friendly and more inclusive for children. I know, especially now, we have a lot of children who find themselves on the wrong path. And I don't know if our legal structure is built to be able to absolve those children and also rehabilitate them properly. What are some key reforms you believe Africa needs to focus on to make for a more friendly and inclusive justice system?
Firstly, thank you so much for having me on. I think this is an amazing and yeah, just thank you for allowing me to be here. I think for me, with regards to the key reforms in the justice sector, so first of all, I'll tell you, as you know, in Africa, we most of all of us, all the countries, we come from colonial system, right? We were colonized, and most of the laws that we have in a lot of countries are still the colonial laws. So the system hasn't been changed in a lot of countries to a point where it has been modernized to incorporate child friendliness. So when you ask me the question of what are the key reforms, I think one of the first key reforms I think is very important is diversion. So for those who don't know, diversion is where a child is diverted from the formal justice system. Let's say, for example, a young boy is arrested, right? The usual process is you get arrested and then you're taken to court, and then if you're unable to get bail, you're taken to the correctional facility until your trial is done. But what diversion does is at the point of arrest, right, the police can divert you away, meaning they send you to a CSO or an institution where you can be counseled, where they can help you figure out what happened, they can help you reintegrate into society. It's a way to prevent you to be marred or to be scarred by the criminal justice system, which is quite brutal for young children. So diversion is key, very, very key, because it also helps statistics show it helps with recidivism. So recidivism is where a child is arrested, is incarcerated, it comes out, but because of the hardened nature of the criminal justice system, they just loop back and they do it all over again. So diversion helps focus on the issues why the child is committing this offense and just helps the child navigate it away, and helps the child as well as the family, which is very important with diversion. It's not just the child, but the child's family and the community as a whole, embracing the child and helping the child reform. For me, that's very key. In Zambia, we finally put it in our statute books in the Children's Code Act. We do have diversion as law now. The other key reform I would say is something that I always advocate for, right? It's called restorative justice. Restorative justice is very similar to diversion, but its focus is on helping the child understand the error that they did. So if a child assaults someone, right, it's about helping the child understand what that assault has done. So you bring the child and you bring the victim, and you allow the victim to sit face to face with the child. So the victim explains to the child what that, for example, assault has done to them, what it has done to them, what it has done to their family, or if they've got a business, what it has done to the business. But also it allows the child also to speak as to why the child committed that offense. It creates this bringing together of two parties where there's a wrong that has happened, two parties, and you're trying to resolve this in an amicable way. It brings the community together, but it also allows the child to understand the errors of their ways, but also delves into the reasons why the child committed the offense. What are the issues? I think it's a very key reform that I think most countries should take up. Another one is the elimination of pretrial detention. So for the most part, when someone commits an offense, in particular a child commits an offense, you'd be arrested at the police station. But due to the sometimes the slow nature of justice, you'd find the child is detained for a long period of time at the police station before they're able to go to court. And as you know, most police stations in Africa do not provide food, do not provide education. There's no psychosocial counseling going on at the police station. So this child is just stuck in a police station, and in most cases, probably in the same cell with adults. So I think it's important now to create a reform so that children are not detained at police stations for any period of time, right? But let's say in instances where a child may have committed a serious offense, right? Then you have to ensure that The services are there to provided for the child while they are in detention. There should be education, there should be food, there should be any medical attention that the child needs. And even if the child is then taken to a correctional facility, those services should always be present for the child. And I think the last reform that a key reform that I always advocate for is for children not to be in the same correctional facilities as adults. It's not right for a child to be in the same facility where the people who have hardened criminals. The child is not going to learn. Reform will not happen in that case. So in instances where a child is or is supposed to be detained or is detained, they have to be separated from adults. Better yet, if possible, if there are any juvenile or child centers where the child could be kept during that period of time, then that's where the child should be kept. And while they're there, all the services that a child requires, whether it's health, food, family contact, should be present. I think for me, those are the key reforms that are important for all African countries, especially for the African child. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Oof. Okay, I see we have a lot of work to do. Thank you for sharing that. I totally agree. I think what stood out for me here, and that's something that even outside of the justice system, I think we need to start learning as people, is the reform around restorative justice, where young people or children are being put through the process of understanding the impact of their actions rather than just throwing them and punishing them. And a lot of times we even emit punishments that are far too, I don't know, extreme. And at the end of the day, they don't even know why they are being punished, or they don't understand the gravity of their action. So they just get out and do the same thing again. So for me, it's very important. Thank you so much for highlighting that. And I think it's a lesson that even as parents, as individuals in communities, we need to learn to let people understand the impact of their actions, the consequences, how their actions affect other people. And it a lot of times we don't understand that, so we don't see why people things. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that's something that we need to again. Still following up with you, Kabota. I will just want to also ask, what role can young lawyers or activists play in advancing these reforms? You have highlighted some reforms, and I don't know if these particular things are things you're already working on. But I think that this is something that a larger group of lawyers or legal practitioners should push for, not just in Zambia but across Africa. So how can young lawyers or activists take up this challenge? What role can they play?
Okay. I think for me, the first thing is understand what it is you're trying to change. Before you think of where you're going or what role you want to play, understand what it is that you're trying to change, right? Let's say you were talking about restorative justice, right? So you're understanding what it actually means, what it means for your country, what it means for your legal system. But when it comes to the role that you can play, first of all, the it's important for you to understand where your country is with regards to legal provisions. Let me not talk legally, but where country stands on their statute books. So if you look at, let's say, for example, if you have an act that talks about children in conflict with the law, right? So you're looking at it and saying, okay, is there what does it say currently, and what is it that you'd want to change, right? That's where you start. When you understand that, then you understand, okay, then are there any people in the space that are currently in your country working on this? Are there any CSOs working on reform of the law? Is there any active groups working on it? So that you partner with them, because essentially what you're trying not to do is have 10 different people working on the same thing. So you bring your resources together, try and figure out, okay, where can we go? Where do we start? Also, it's also important for you to understand what it takes in your country to, let's talk if you want to review the law or you want to change a policy, what do you need to do to change the policy? So understanding what the policies are, how the policy is made, Because if you understand what the policies are and what the policies made, then you know where to start. So let's say some instances there'll be maybe it's a public discourse on the issue. That's where you start. Sometimes they might ask for in Zambia, for example, they would ask you to if write submissions, on the amendment of the act. That's where you start. But if you understand what the process is for your own country as to where you can start, that's what you do. The other thing that you do also is try and see if there's international law that's backed, and there's a lot of international law that's backs changes. And I think a lot of African countries are signatories, for example, to the UN Convention on Child Rights. Has your country ratified it? Ratified it? Has it domesticated it in a way into your own system? If it hasn't, you ask yourself why, because usually that will give you backing, because it's one thing for you to say it's important for you to change, but it's another thing for you to do your research and find legal resources that have shown the importance of that change, because you're speaking in this essence to the state, and the state needs to understand why it is important for you to change the law. The other thing I would say that's important is find out within your country, or within, whether it's the Ministry of Justice, whoever is important, find champions within those institutions that you can speak to. Not everyone in that institution is against change, but they need to understand why the change is coming, and they're the ones that can influence people within that institution. So find champions within the institutions, speak to them. If you have an opportunity, for example, to speak to your parliamentary leaders, and there's maybe open discourse or open dialogues, go there, speak up. One of the things that I think is vital, especially for young people, this is something that we've been blessed with, is social media. Social media is a very, very important tool for all of us, because social media reaches so many people. So use social media. Allow the public to understand also where you're coming from. One challenge that we have, especially when it comes to children in conflict with the law, children who commit these offenses, is sometimes the public would say, but these children need to be punished, but they need to understand what that punishment does, right? So usually I would say, for me, what's important is find a human story within what you're trying to push. Find a human, find a particular story that will hit people. Because if we talk about it abstractly and just say this needs to change, people will be like, no, but there's so much drug use, children need to be punished. But find a human story. Like we said with restorative justice, right? Why are the children taking drugs? Why are the children committing these offenses? Right? If you know what the why is, then it's easy now for you to convince the public as to why the change needs to happen. So use of social media, we've got so many social media platforms that can be used. So it's important for young activists and lawyers also to use those platforms, right? So this is all in this ties into strategic advocacy, right? You create a strategy on how you're going to tackle these things, how you're going to create change. Use social media, you use public engagement, you speak to your parliamentarians, you look at the law, you understand the law, you write policy briefs, you write submissions, partner with people who understand a lot of these things, and it makes it easier. One of the things that I realized growing up, when I started, the first time I worked on a policy, I didn't even know how it was, how a policy came up, and what happens with regards to policy. We just see these policies spring about. I had to find someone who understood that. And thank God in my work, I work with lawyers who've with far much more experience than I have on policies and legal reform. And he just started asking, okay, what does this do? I remember someone took me along saying, look, I'm going to make a submission before a parliamentary committee on the media and the freedom of expression of the media. Come tag along, sit in the audience so that you watch how this is done, right? That's important. That's mentorship, similar to what Maima said. I sat there, watched, and it helped me understand how the process works. And that's what you do. You find people who've been doing this for a long time, you partner with them. And lastly, the most important thing I would say is also look at it from the ground, from the grassroots. I think we rush to the national so quick, but sometimes within your own communities, there's so much stories there that you start with, there's so much change there that you start with, and that's where the bigger story will come from, is for the small initiatives that you do. And as you keep on growing, as you ally with other CSOs, you'll be able then to tackle most of these challenges and create this legal reform.
Okay. Wow, that was, let me take a breath. Sorry. That was a lot, but I'm glad you highlighted those things. That's so important. I would start with what you mentioned lastly. A lot of times we're looking at national and we want the big things without working on the foundation. We don't understand that at the end of the day, sometimes not all issues are being solved at the top. Sometimes it's a bottom up approach, and that's why sustainability sometimes is a challenge because we do not start from the ground up. And thank you for emphasizing collaboration. A lot of times, I don't know if we shy away or run away from collaboration, but a lot of times collaboration is missing, and I don't understand why we don't do that. So looking at people who are already in the space doing what they need to do is very important, and I really hope that we get to the point where we understand that it's not a solo race. We're not working in silos. We need to work together to address these issues. Thank you so much for that, Kabuta. I will just go straight to Maimar again to say dance as a tool for social impact. So everything that the two mentors we have here are doing are around social impact, community development, and transformation. How has dance as a tool served to empower and impact the different communities you've worked with? Um, how has dance served as a tool for empowerment and impact in the community you work with? And how can Africans harness this creativity for community change? How do we use dance to bring about change? How do we use dance, same as the legal system, same as policy reforms? What challenges have you faced pushing for dance as a social impact tool, and how have you been able to overcome all of this? How do you measure your impact using dance? I'm giving a lot of these questions because for me
Mhm.
dance is unique, so I want to understand, how has dance been used as a tool for social impact by you? What are some of the challenges you've had using dance as a tool for social impact? And what are some measures you have used to navigate these challenges? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. First of all, before I answer that question, I thoroughly enjoyed listening to Kabuta, and a lot of the things that he says resonates with me, even if he's talking about the legal system. And it's usually also my strategy, especially in aspects of collaboration and also talking to, when I'm mentoring people, I always talk to them about collaborating with people upwards to grow faster and to make deeper impact. So that really resonated with me. And I also enjoyed learning a few of the reforms that you are also pushing for. Okay, going over to your question. How has dance been used as a tool for social change and impact? First of all, dance is a storytelling tool, and dance is art. One of the things that dance has the power to do is ignite emotion and highlight, issues through storytelling. One of the things that Kabuta also mentioned was find the human side of a story. And that's what impact dance actually does. What it does is we look for stories that matter to us. As a choreographer, when I'm choreographing pieces that are not commissioned alone, but pieces that mean a lot to me. I always have to dig deep and look at my society, and then find out, that's the period I'm going through, all the emotions, how I feel about what the news, what's being said in the news, what I'm hearing, things that are grieving the nation. And sometimes what that does for me is it makes me do research. I have to go and find out, know more about these people so that I can tell their stories properly. Sometimes I have to have one-on-one connections with them. Sometimes I do indirect researches, but it's always important to connect with the people. Now, being able to do that gives me the power to be able to highlight their story, and it's sort of like a journey of an empath. I have to take in what they are feeling before I can express it. Now, dance itself as a storytelling tool is basically reflecting society for them to see what is glaring in case you are missing it. And dance brings people together, so it's an artistic, a beautiful way of reminding people what they should see, what they should, connect to. And once you can trigger emotion, then change has begun. I've had cases of productions I've had, and it's after the production I begin to meet people that come and tell me this happened to me, that happened to me, and they open up a different dimension of themselves, and I find out that that helps heal them a little bit. So that's one way dance can make social impact, when people see themselves, their stories in those movements, in those pieces. Another way dance can be used is when we actually engage. Community theater is not just showing them, but sometimes what you do is you make it immersive. You allow them to use movement, because first of all, movement is release, movement is expression. You guide them through movements that can help them connect to emotions that release them. Generally, stress and memory is connected to your body. A lot of the trauma is stored up in our bodies. And once we're able to help and guide people release that tension, then they begin to find expression for things that they could not speak about. One way we find out people are more numb because they were still in shock, or they can't find ways to express themselves. And so movement is a fantastic tool to get people to release themselves from such emotional trauma or mental trauma. Another way is using dance as a tool to bring people together, just so that you can bring attention to an issue. So apart from running Chrome Studios, I also started an initiative called Dance for Impact. And what Dance for Impact does is that we train dancers, we admit dancers and train them to do impact storytelling pieces that connect to their communities, so that they can use dance as a tool to address some of these social issues one way or the other, either by doing what I said initially, highlighting and spotlighting, or going, helping people, guiding them through healing, or bringing people together so that we can talk, have conversations about things that need to be handled or talked about, conflict transformation, things like that. And so, one of the things that we did was actually take these dancers. The first project featured 101 students grouped into different 5 different groups, and they had 5 communities to do 3 things. One, listen to them, engage with them. Two, build stories and movements around them. Three, find a project they can do with the community that engages their young ones to dance and also brings impact to their elder ones. One of the communities engaged was Wumba in Abuja. And so what we did for them was we engaged their youth, and then we brought in collaborators who taught them how to be to use their new skills, taught them new skills and how to use the skills to make money. And they're not dance skills. So we know that dance is also a collaborator or a connecting tool. And so we do that. And then we also train the elder ones on how to build fitness routines that will help them release stress. These are people that cannot afford to do that on their own. And another community that we worked with was with the hearing impaired. And what we did with them was, first of all, allow them to express themselves. We allowed them to express themselves. We allowed them to teach us how to speak to them, sign languages, and then we collaborated in creating pieces. And one of the things we did for their community also was build a website for them so that they can advertise themselves and connect with the world, so that when people need to engage with them, they can do that. Now, these are just two examples. There were several examples, and those are things that Dance for Impact keeps on doing. And those are just a few ways in which dance has been used. Apart from my initiative, there are quite a lot of dancers out there that are focused on using their tool as to highlight issues that matter. Some of them speak about it can even be child abuse. Some of them speak about historical preserving our culture. Some of them speak about new ways. It doesn't matter. That's the beautiful thing about that dance. It's we can take any topic, embody it once we connect with the people, engage people, and highlight issues in a way that speaking might not allow people to do. There's a saying that if we can dance together, we can do so many things together. So, in several ways, dance has been used and will continue to be used. I think I'll leave you with those three examples. Let me just highlight that again. One, storytelling, telling people stories. Two, expression, allowing people to heal through guiding them through their own experience and their own expression. Three, using it to bring people together to be able to work together towards solving problems and also empowering people in different ways. I think I'll leave you with that. Yeah. Am I still?
Thank you
Hello?
so much.
Yes.
Yes, you see, when I said that bio was a very abbreviated version, now we're getting in depth into the work that Mima has done and is still doing. Oh, so I totally agree. Dance does a lot. A lot of times you don't even know the kind of emotions that you have buried in until you're watching a piece or you're just listening to something that is being expressed through a dance performance, and then you begin to connect in ways that you have never imagined. Thank you so much for reminding us of that. And also, I think that aside just highlighting issues, what dance does is it simplifies issues for us. Some of us are not so keen about sitting to watch the news or sitting to understand what policy is about or what the documents carry. But when we say let's go for a dance show, let's watch a dance show, people are more excited. People want to be there. And it's easier to connect. It's easier to sit a 15 minutes, it connects better, it's relatable, and even the people that are on stage are people that you know, people whose lives maybe you've experienced, so it's easier to connect with these stories. Thank you so much for highlighting that. Dance for storytelling, dance for expression, and dance for problem solving. I see a lot of connection between our two mentors, and it's exciting to see that, irrespective of the industry or sector you belong to, we're pretty much doing the same thing, which is why collaboration is very key. Still on you, Maima. Um, we have heard you speak about the work that you're doing and all of the benefits of the work that you're doing. However, I want to understand and I want us to get to know those behind the scenes struggle you go through? What have been some of the biggest hurdles you have had to face starting out? How do you balance the business side of work? This is your career. So how do you balance the business side of work and also the creative passion that drives you? And in what ways can young entrepreneurs in the creative sector access opportunities or resources to do this kind of work that you're doing? So first, the hurdles you face starting out and even sustaining, balancing business and creative passion, and how young people can also learn from this and access opportunities.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That's a very, important question. First of all, I think one of the tools or skills I always say you have to have in this industry, especially in Nigeria and where we find ourselves, the region we find ourselves, is you have to be dogged. You have to you have to be dogged and focus on purpose. I'm very purpose driven. And because of that, the challenges that I face, I face them because I know um, it's more about the goal, it's more about the purpose, and that causes me to adapt easily. There's so many challenges. First of all, earlier on I mentioned about educating my audience. That was something I had to do deliberately because I found out that I needed to build my audience. When I started, a lot of things were not accessible. People didn't understand it. So I had to literally teach people how to see me. And two, I needed to prove myself. I've gone to 3 business schools. And the reason why I did that was because for me, it's not about, it was much more than dancing, it was about equipping myself to be able to have a sustainable structure. And then another thing was also human resource turnover. I had a lot of, initially I didn't have challenges in that sector at all because I was the only one doing what I was doing when I started. And even the dancers that were coming, I was giving them possibilities and ideas, and so things were limited, and everyone wanted to work with me. And then over time, as I evolved, I started. Basically, I'm still in the business of training my competition, and over the years, for instance, in my city, my studio was the first. Now there are over 15 studios. One of the flexibility I talked about, being dogged. As an entrepreneur, one of the things that can do is take you aback all the time. But one of the strategies I started using was collaboration. So for me, my team is not only my studio team anymore. My team is everyone. I can work with people that are not only in my studio, even the ones, because Nigerians are very entrepreneurial. Once they learn a system, they want to replicate it. So I basically, for me now, have, instead of just having one studio, I have a studio that now collaborates with almost every studio. So I train the trainers. I provide resources for the trainers as well as part of one of the things that I do. And so over the years, evolution. I have this saying that, you know, evolution happens without your permission. So you either get with the program or you die. And so what I do is, some of the times I find challenges like that. I find ways to collaborate, and then I move on. I find the strength in all these areas, and then I put them together once again. And another thing, as an entrepreneur, I'd say another challenge I have faced is um, being able to work with the current economy. As at 3 years ago, one of the things that our rates, for instance, were probably like 5 times less in some of the things that we do. So now, having people see dance as a service, see dance not only for as a gift, because that's one of the challenges that we have. People go like, oh, you are talented. They think that I just did it naturally or I dance naturally, but they forget that I've been in school. As a dancer, you are always in school, you're always training. And for instance, some of the trainings that we get are not accessible here in Nigeria, and we have to travel. And so when you put all of that together, you find that a lot of people can't afford dance classes. And so what we now try to do is we combine social impact with, getting people to dance, as well as providing premium services for people that can afford it. And we are only able to do that because we are always focused on the goal. It's not about staying in one position. It's about being flexible enough to find the results you need to find, even if you don't have exactly the same structure that you intended. Structure is very important for me, but I've also learned that structure is fluid. So I've learned to set systems for different kinds of scenarios. So for each aspect of the program we do at Chrome Studios, they have separate structures and then they connect at a point. We have systems that we've set for mentorship, systems that we've set for people that want to replicate our programs, systems that we've set for our clients, systems that we've set for government and cultural institutions, systems that we've set for collaborations, for downward collaborations, upward collaborations, and also lateral collaborations. And that just helps us to go by. As a choreographer who is also very artistic and also very logical at the same time, I think my background in engineering, which I also studied in school, sort of helps me balance that. And balancing isn't always, I, I think it's a myth. I don't think you can get an actual balance full out, because for things to be done, that zeal, that passion, that drive is important. And when you have it, it's quite difficult to have a balance all the time or throughout your life. So what I try to do is I plan seasons, I plan times into the structure, so that I know, fine, we will do something every 2 years, we will do something every year, and we will do something. There's the consistent one that happens every month, there's the consistent one that happens daily. And that is sort of how we balance it out. As a person, I try and surround myself with information, information, and I learned from everyone. I mean, like, just listening to Kabota, I was already fusing it somewhere else. I love learning. I learn from movies. I learn from people, interacting with people, and that helps me. Once I hear people's stories, it kind of also helps me balance out and connect to who I am again, so that I can dish out, impact to whoever is around me at that point in time. Yes, I think I will stop there. Stop there.
Thank you
Um,
so much.
yeah,
Ooh, that's a lot of
yes,
learnings.
yes.
And it just goes ahead to this is why we do what we do. A lot of times we see the highlights on social media, we see the results, and we don't understand the work that goes on behind the scene. We just see people smiling and people announcing the milestones and we don't take time out to actually sit down and ask them questions. Thank you for being this vulnerable. Mentorship is never complete
Thank
without
you.
vulnerability. Thank you for being this vulnerable about your journey and just sharing with us. Thank you very much. We do not take it for granted. Woo.
Thank you.
Okay, so back to Kabota. I'm trying to catch up, write down as much as I can, and still just wow. Okay. So I see that a lot of the work that both mentors are doing actually are very similar. And it's just, I think, the titles that we carry that makes the difference, but it's the same thing we're doing from different angles. So for Kabota, what are some challenges you have faced bridging the gap between civil society and the government, that if you've had to work across board, because the truth is I know that the legal system has to do with the government, but activism and reforms and policy changes, amendments and all of that also comes from the civil society. And so what are some challenges you've had to face bridging this gap? How have you overcome them? What are some successes of collaborations that you have had and other young legal practitioners and advocates can learn from to be able to replicate this, especially across Africa? Remember, this is Africa. So, how can young people in Tanzania, in Namibia, in South Africa do what you have done that has worked in the challenges that are similar to yours? Navigate this.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that question. Um, to be honest, there are a lot of challenges. I think civil society as a whole starts with it already. When there's here civil society, people get combative because the assumption is that you have come to fight. you know, so that already is a challenge because the state always looks not. I won't say always. Let me not put them in a box, but there's always this perception that civil society just come and point the wrongs that the state is doing. So there's no trust at any point between the state and civil society because civil society are pointing at the wrongs. The state is saying they're doing the right thing. So this already combative nature. That's the biggest challenge. Is there's just this thing where people don't want to come together because the civil society as a whole are always going to put checks and balances on government saying you're not doing this, you're not doing that, you haven't changed this, and you haven't changed that. On the other hand, government looks at civil society and says, hey, you've got an ulterior motive and there's this and then that. So the challenges majority revolves around the intentionality of both parties and also just the fact that there is no trust between the two. But some of the things that over the years that have helped, for example, is what I've through my work is also is important, especially because I worked in civil society for a long time. It's important first to look at what is a mutual goal that you have with the state, with government. Let's in a moment forget about all the wrongs that government is doing. What are the mutual things that government wants and that civil society wants? If you start with a mutual goal, that's where the building of trust starts. Just what do we agree on? What's the mutual objective we agree on? We agree that children should have a good life. We agree that children should be able to grow without being in prison for a long time. So some of these things you find that common goal. It starts there. It's as simple as that because then if you have a common goal, you can sit at the table and talk about all the good things about that common goal without focusing on the wrong things, obviously. But it starts there. You start building trust. The next thing that I also throughout my years that has helped also is then you're moving on to I think I spoke about it before. Within these institutions, there are those champions, right? You start identifying these champions, start speaking to them, helping them understand where you're coming from. Some of these people might already, even before you speak to them, might know about you and might actually support the work that you're doing. So find those people. That's also a way to help. The other thing also is, as civil society, we also don't spend a lot of time uh, just inviting government to look at some of our initiatives. You bring them in. You're having a awareness raising day, just so that they see also what you were saying. They're not hearing from a third person. They're there. You invite them if you have an open day, whatever type of event you are having. You bring them in. Ask them to participate. If they don't want to participate, ask them just to, you can sit in the audience, just watch. You share stuff that you're doing with them. This also helps because the government sees that, okay, there's a good intention, excuse me, behind this civil society. They're not doing this just to spite government and just, protesting for the sake of protesting. You know what I mean? There's actually a reasoning behind. Something that Maima said, it's a story, right? You're creating a story, and that's what civil society does. When you've created your story, it helps government also look at what your work that you're doing beyond the confines of conflict between the two. What is the human factor? What are you doing as civil society? What's the story you are telling? Some of the things that we helped, and something that I can totally agree with Maima, is we used to work with grassroots level CSOs with drama and dance, which is very important. It's part of our culture as Africans. When we cry, there's a dance that you're going to dance. When you're happy, there's a dance. Dance is very expressive. Drama is very expressive. And coming from a legal background, sometimes you end up being so structured in how things are done that you need help from someone else to tell your story in a way that you can't. And that's what we did. We found drama groups that, they made poems, they sang songs, they danced, and we invite government to see those things. So they're seeing it not through just the eyes of me talking every day as a lawyer, but they're seeing it through the eyes of the people because the expression in the dance and in the poem and in the song is something that's coming from the people. It's not largely from us. So it also allows government then to open up their eyes and say, okay, look, then there's a need in this community, there's a need in the country, and this is all over Africa, right? Then you start looking about structures, right? Some structures are already established, for example, dialogue structures. I'll give you an example. In Zambia, for children, there's a child justice forum, right? This is a forum. It's by the under the judiciary, where all the child justice sector stakeholders sit. This is the police, the judiciary, the prosecutors, the lawyers, and civil society, and the correctional service. Everyone sits into this forum and speaks about the bottlenecks and challenges being faced, how we can resolve them. Already, it's created a platform where civil society and the state can dialogue on some of these issues that are affecting children. So it's about looking for those structures. Some are already established. Sometimes some you might start with an informal structure, right? You start with you yourselves as civil society. Invite state partners, then just to sit in, just so they hear what you're talking about, and then it moves on from there. But if they're already established ones, try and be a part of those so that you're able to put your point across. I think that one of the challenges that civil society faces around Africa, especially in countries where there's a lot of protests, is the moment they hear civil society, they just think protest. These people are going to protest. If you don't give them what they want, it's protest. So already government is combative. But when you create those dialogues, right, it shows a different side. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with protesting. Protesting is important in some instances. In other instances, dialogue is even more important because now you have a seat at the table. So now, what are you doing at the table? What are you discussing? It's important also to look at it from that angle. Another thing also is mutual trust, which I talked about, mutual trust, but also transparency in the work that you're doing. I'm sure it's a story across Africa that there's always suspecting civil society of being backed by certain people or being backed by certain agendas. There's just an assumption, oh, this civil society is backed by this agenda. They're trying to push this thing, and I'm sure most people about those things where they won't even be invited to events because they are seen to be backed by a particular agenda, right? But when you have got transparency in the work that you're doing, right? This is now why I say you bring in people so that they see, so that they know that there's no hidden agenda. The agenda is the people's agenda. It's always important to remind government that the work that you're doing is not for the civil society. It's for the people because civil society, you speak for the people. So we're not bringing in the civil society's agenda. You're bringing in the people's agenda. And that's what you're constantly telling government because then now it's transparent as to why you're doing it because they'll come to your communities and see that it's actually the community that are asking for these things. So it's important always to show that side, to show where you're coming from, that it's not you, it's not a foreign agenda, it's not a Western agenda, it's an African agenda because it's African people and it's the people in the communities, right? One of the final things I'll say is also publicize and talk about the joint wins. Sometimes an initiative between government and the civil society will produce amazing things, but no one wants to talk about them. But it's important because it shows also if I'm sitting at home and I'm seeing civil society and government, they've done something amazing and it's on TV, then even me as a citizen, I'm happy because I see, look, my civil society peers and the government peers are working together to create a better life for people. And it's important to publicize those joint wins. I think we hide so much, behind a win will happen and no one will talk about it. You won't hear it on radio, but it's important where you have had a dialogue with government and you've had activities with government and there's a success story, the human story. Stories always have to be told. Always go back to the people and make it plain and clear. Look, this is what we've done. You know, so I'll say it is challenging working with government and civil society. It would always be challenging. There will always be ups and downs, but always remember, right? You are always, because civil society is speaking for the people. It's challenging, but you keep on doing it. You keep on doing it, and slowly, slowly, change will happen. The thing about the work that we do is happens very slow. It doesn't happen quick. If everyone knows anything about the justice sector, is things happen slow, but they do happen. So it's also not about giving up. It's about consistently seeking dialogue, consistently talking about the dialogue, consistently working towards shared goals and just shared activities so there's a success for the people.
Thank you so much. Oof, okay. So again, we've come back to collaboration. Um, Collaboration as key, and ensuring that we don't lose the focus of the fact that everything that we're doing is for the benefit of the whole. Citizens are are the focus of whatever work we're doing, and that's, I think, Maima highlighted something earlier when she said, "Stay dogged and be purpose driven in the work that we do." Purpose is to ensure that citizens get justice, citizens get the benefits of whatever solutions we're driving for. And when we keep that at the front burner, we're not antagonizing each other. We are not having that distrust towards each other as civil society or the government. We're saying, oh, where are the gaps that I can help to cover for effective delivery? Thank you so much, Kabota, for that. I will just move to Myanmar now. So for Myanmar, we're rounding up very soon. I know it's been a long day. For Myanmar, we just want to. You mentioned a lot of intentionality when it comes to training, when it comes to going to school, when it comes to building capacity. Just want to find out. I know you've trained at institutions like the Broadway Dance Center and Lagos Business School. How have these experiences shaped your approach towards mentorship and leadership? And then, what are some particular lessons or mentors that these experience that have guided you through these experiences? What role does continuous learning for you play? And how would you encourage young people to also be intentional in terms of learning and building? I know sometimes we have this traditional clear cut path where we say just go to school, you finish, you get a job, and that's it. Or for you, it's maybe get a studio and that's it. You have people coming in, but you've talked about continuous learning. So, how has that helped you? And then, how do you think it can help young people? Mima, can you hear me, Kabota?
Yes, I can. I think
Okay.
maybe she's had internet issues.
Oh, okay. All right then. So maybe while we wait for her, we will just still engage you since we have you here.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
All right. So still on Kabota now. We have seen all of the challenges that we face as civil society and government, and even with our policy reforms. Just want to know from your experiences, what are some of the very efficient platforms or networks that have been very impactful in amplifying the voices like yours. So, what are those very key networks and platforms? We talked about collaborations a lot. Are there specific platforms or networks that people within your space should look out for to leverage? And how can young Africans balance their passion for advocacy with also technical knowledge needed to influence policy? Because I know some of us is just we have the energy for it, we have the 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 interest, but then technically we also need to be alert. So how do we balance passion, technical expertise, and what are platforms and networks we can leverage?
Okay. So I'll start with what the last question with about how to leverage your passion. And I think the first thing I would say is it's important firstly to, so first of all, start where you are, right? I think sometimes with passion is sometimes our passions go way beyond where we are. So we look at these figures, these historical figures, and most of us come from African countries where you had these big political activists. And so you find your passion is because you've seen that, and now you become passionate about that movement, that you want to reach there. But it's important, firstly, with your passion, where you are, your community, your neighborhood, you start there. Because that will allow you to create a base and an understanding, right? Because the next thing I'm going to talk about is also understanding. You don't have to be, one thing I'll tell you is you don't have to be a lawyer to work around policy. You don't have to understand human rights. You don't have to be a lawyer. But what's important is to understand that. So you still have to read a lot, right? So you start with doing your background, reading a lot. There's so much information. Thank God for the internet. You can find so much information on the type of work or your type of passion. Read up as much as possible because that will allow you to understand it. But the reason why you read also is not just for you to understand it globally, but to bring it home. The reason I say you start from where you are is after you've got this understanding, you bring it home. What does that mean for you in your district, in your state? What does that mean for your people in your community? Once you understand that, it allows you now to say, okay, this is now where I can direct my passion. Another important thing also that helps with direction is simple volunteering. The reason why I do the work that I do is because I volunteered one day. One day, was a CSO that used to visit children in prisons on Saturdays. And I said, you know what? I want to tag along. I always had a passion for the law, right? And a passion to help people, but I didn't understand how to direct that passion. When I volunteered for a while, saw the plight of the children in prison, saw the fact that a lot of children are not being legally represented. That's why I say I pushed it in. I pushed it in, and this is a correctional facility within my communities in Lusaka. I live in Lusaka. It's as simple as that. Volunteering allows you because volunteering helps you see it. You've read about it. You're starting where you are. Volunteering helps you see what it actually means when people are working around that area. That's very, very important. The next thing I would say is also mentorship, right? There's one thing that I totally agree with Mama is how important mentorship is. Because when I started out, I remember there's a gentleman who was around my age, but he had done so much. He had done so much, and I was so inspired. But the problem I had is in my mind, mentorship was being mentored by someone who's, way older than me and that, kind of you put them on a pedestal. But this guy was my age, you know, and I struggled, But then I remember because I'm Christian and I said, you know what, I told God, I need to understand this sector. I've got this passion. I need to understand this. And the person that has all the tools that I need is this person. And I need to be able to sit and listen without looking at our age difference and anything. And that really helped because he was able to guide me. Because, when you're coming, you've got passion. Passion is so much energy, but that energy needs to be directed in a particular way. And that's what mentorship helped me. It brought all the energy and all the ideas and directed it and put it in one direction and structured it. And that's very, very important because once you've been mentored and once you figure out where you're going, it will help. That's very important. So now going back to the networks, right? One of the networks for the Zigwai in the introduction says we both did the Mandela Washington Fellowship, right? So after a Mandela Washington Fellow, and that's one thing I'll tell people to apply for. It's very important because it creates a network of people working on similar things. when we went to the fellowship, we found so many people similar to Maima right now. You have people who are in dance, people who do so many different things. But we realize that the actual work that we're doing and the lives we're impacting are the same. It's just, like Zigo, I said, it's just putting a different name on it, right? It's law, it's dance, it's activism. It's the same thing because we're headed towards the same goal. So the Mandela Washington Fellowship, the network that's there, has it's a vast knowledge because you have resources, you have people from different countries dealing who are a little bit far ahead from where we are in our country, and they're able to reach out and get resources and get help and get mentorship as well. That's a very, very big network. There's also the Yali network. If you have those in your country, those are very important as well because there's a wealth of knowledge within those Yali networks. You just search on it. Usually you search by title as to on the website as to type of information that you're looking for, or type of people that you're looking for. They're definitely going to be able to help. But like I said, start where you are locally. There are a lot of networks within your countries that you might not have heard of. There are a lot of youth networks that are doing vital work. I know so many networks in Nigeria which are doing amazing work. Find out from within your communities, within your countries, the networks that are available there. What are the types of work that they're doing? It's important because I might not know the networks that are there in your countries, but once you find out, they will show you what they've been doing, where they are going, and you can also now ask exact things what you want from them, and they'll be able to help. So seek those networks out. Trust me, they will help you on this journey because like I said, collaboration is important. You can't do this. You can't do this alone. It's important to move together. So find out about these networks. For me, those ones are the best networks that I found. Within the legal fraternity, I'm a lawyer, so we have the Law Association of Zambia. There's so many lawyers that I can reach out to that have been doing work around access to justice in Zambia. We've got a pool of lawyers. So I also reach out to those. They've got civil society networks that work with paralegals in communities that provide free legal services to people in communities. You know, that's the type of network that I worked on. People that work on the ground. It's important, obviously, on the higher levels, on policy, on legal reform. At the courts. But it's also important for me to know what's happening on the ground level, what's happening from community to community, from chiefdom. We have the rural in Africa, you have the rural setup, and then you've got the urban setup. The paralegals work in the most rural areas, and the challenge they face are totally different. But also the resources that they have are vital. They have vital data. So I reach out a lot to the paralegal networks just to find out, to get information, to get data. So I think, to be honest, that's all I would like, kind of the area that I would say you should focus on. But I'll just reemphasize. Also, look out for the fellowships that are there, because on these fellowships you're going to meet people, scholarships. Yeah, internships are important as well. Internships are one of the things that where you learn the most. If you won't get paid for most of them, sadly you won't get paid. But the value and the resources that you gain through internship, they will take a lot. I entered so much when I was younger, and to this day, the experiences that I got through my internships, I'm still using those that knowledge to this day. So that's also very, very important. So if you have got passion in what you're doing, volunteer, intern, seek out mentorship, seek out networks. These will help you in anything that you're trying to do. And like the theme for today, I think we should name this the collaboration theme, because we've been talking about collaboration. Collaborate, collaborate, collaborate.
I like
Thank
that.
you.
Team collaboration. Yes, please. I think at the end of the day, that's all I've been hearing, and I love
Hmm.
it because it's a reminder. It's a very key reminder that sometimes we tend to forget. Even in delegating work, sometimes you want to do it by yourself because you feel, oh, this person won't do it the way I can or the way I want it. But then we will forget that perspectives, diverse perspectives, also brings about the best in solutions. Thank you so much, Kaputa, for highlighting those opportunities and networks that could be. What I heard was please ensure you get paid for the internship. Yes, please. It's service, but really you need to pay the bills. So ensure you get paid. Um, so for our final question for today, so we could let Kabota go. I'm very sure there have been moments when you face setbacks or discouragements in the course of the journey. It's a lot. We've heard you talk about a lot. And for me, as much as we are all working, I feel like the legal system just gets you at some point, because everybody wants magic to happen. Everybody wants answers, but then, and you're there, you're trying to explain it. It's like they're not understanding it. So, really, what has that been like for you? And are you still trying to navigate? Have you navigated? Are you trying to strategize on how to navigate? Where exactly are you at right now? What are those moments you've had for setbacks, for discouragements? We want to see beyond just the profile and see how we can also relate to that. The human part of it.
Yeah. No, because one thing I'll tell you is setbacks are part of life. I've had so many setbacks. Trust me, I've had so many. I still have setbacks, but it's something that I've learned over the years is I've through the setbacks, that's where I've learned all the amazing lessons. Not that I seek out setbacks. Obviously, I hope I don't get any more setbacks, but it's through those setbacks. Setbacks do come. I had setbacks whether it was a student in university, setbacks whether it was becoming a lawyer. And most people who, if anyone's a lawyer, they know how difficult it is, especially when you're writing the bar exams. There's setbacks. There's so many setbacks. But if there's one thing that helped me go, through them, first of all, having an amazing family help is a benefit. I'm Christian as well. Having my God behind me helped. It was very important. But also, it's through those things. But also knowing how can I put this? Knowing where I'm going, right? I told myself from the beginning, even when I wanted to become a lawyer. I know people think of law as this, being a lawyer as this prestigious thing, which in some instances it is. But for me, I've always looked at whatever I'm doing is just a tool to do what I really want to do. You know what I mean? Being a lawyer is not the end game. If I'm not a lawyer, it will not stop me from doing what I want to do. So the question is, what do you want to do, right? If you have a setback and you can't be that thing, but the ultimate goal is if your job is to help people, let's say you have a passion about helping people, even if you wanted to help people through law and maybe that doesn't work out, you have a setback there. If your goal is still helping people, you'll find a way. Look at other ways. Even when I was having those setbacks, if there's one thing I always did is okay, I have the setback, but while I'm in this setback, can I still help? Right? And that's for me the goal. Once you've created one thing as that's the only thing that you have to be, that's where the difficult comes in. If I told myself the only thing that I want to be is a lawyer, what happens if I don't pass the bar, or if I can't afford uni fees and I can't do that? Then automatically that would mean that's it, and my dreams are shattered. But I constantly ask myself, what's the lawyer, to being a lawyer for what? And this can be anything in any walk of life. Why are you doing that thing? How are you being of service? For me, service is very important. How are you being of service to people? So even the setback comes, and it will hurt, trust me, it hurts. Yeah, you will cry, but then you sit back and then you focus. It will hurt, but always think about the reason behind it, right? Surround yourself with good people. When you do have the setback, speak about it. Don't hide, don't shy away. Take some time, but come back and refocus, regroup. Everyone, I don't think there's any person who's lived an amazing life that didn't have a setback. So first thing, don't think it's happening just to you. It's happening to to everyone. Zigwai can tell you about the setbacks that she's had in her life, and all of us have had. But it's because we keep on pursuing what we are pursuing. The important thing is the end product, right? So these setbacks will come and they'll fall off, and another one will come and they'll fall off. But also, what setbacks will do is once you've had a number of setbacks, you'll start learning the tricks of the trade. You start learning. Okay, when this setback happens, I should always have a contingency plan. Okay, I need to see if this happens this way, how can I pivot? Okay. So you're not, you know, setting your feet on one spot, but you're always making sure there are other ways and how to adapt, being adaptable, especially in the work that I do. You always have to be able to adapt. You always have to be able to think on your toes. And it's just important also just to think of other ways that you can reach your goal. This shouldn't just be one line. This is how I'm going to do it, because if that line is taken away from you, then that's it. So think about multiple lines, and that will help. But setbacks will happen. But just know that there's so many people around you who've experienced the same thing that can help you, and just keep your eye on the prize. Keep your eye on this thing that you really want to achieve. If it's service, you can serve in so many ways. I hope that little knowledge will help a few of my colleagues.
Huh. That was such a perfect closing. And I think what's what I hear is God, family, and your why. I don't know about every other person on the call, but I know that we all have that higher um standard that we look up to. And for me is God, and for Kapota is God also. And at the end of the day, I believe that I'm here for a purpose, and if He has called me for that purpose, He will see me through the purpose. He doesn't leave halfway. And then having a very solid family support is important, because I believe that at the end of the day, whatever ideas you have, it's the voices you constantly hear that help you either stand or fall. At the end of the day, also, for some of us, even with the voices or with all of the pushbacks, it's also having a defined why. Why am I doing this? Why am I
Mhm.
here? Why am I taking that decision? And it helps you. It helps you stay even when things are not looking like they will be. We all have our journey, we all have our stories, and we're still here. The truth is, setbacks will never stop coming. Challenges will never stop, but we need to understand where we're going and keep fighting. I don't know if Maima has been able to join us again before we close out. But this has been really, really great. I don't know about anybody on this call, but I have been really, 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 really taken through a very important learning curve. This has been in my mentorship session. Like Abota said, mentorship is not just older people. Okay, Mama is actually here, but I'm not sure why we can't hear her. Okay. Um, wow. I'm not sure what's going on. But Mama is here. We would just like to say thank you. So that we don't keep people and then keep you longer. Um, I'm sure this is technical challenge, but we have gotten so much from our panelists already. We're glad to have emphasized on mentorship, to have emphasized on collaboration, on starting from the ground up. Don't forget that storytelling, expression, and problem solving is what Dance for Impact highlights. And we could always reach out to our mentors. They are both on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, and they're very active. You could follow their work. Maima has Chrome Studios in Abuja, here in Jabi. You could always visit. There are always different classes, whether it's for women, for organizations, for private sector people. You could always reach out. Kabota is in Zambia. He has access to legal networks and other platforms that you would want to reach out if you're around Zambia. And I know that we have learned a lot. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your input. Thank you so much for being this vulnerable with us, for sharing with us beyond what we see on social media and beyond the bio that we get to read. I wish you all the best in the work that you're doing. And I look forward to more collaborations. Thank you so much. We cannot thank you enough. This has been really, really insightful. All right. Any last words you would want to
No,
share?
thank you so much, Tigwe.
Okay.
Yeah, no, firstly, I just want to thank you for creating this amazing platform. I think it's very important because you allow for young Africans to speak, to collaborate, which is something that's a theme today. To collaborate is very important. And it also just emphasizes or kind of like puts a spotlight on the importance of mentorship, which both Maima and I were talking about today. It's a very important platform. And my hope and prayer is that it continues to grow and it continues to reach out to so many young people around, not just Africa, but around the world, because I think Young people are doing amazing work, and platforms like this allows for so many people to be able to witness it, to inspire them, to create initiatives within their own country. So you're doing amazing work. And to the listeners, to anyone who's online with us, thank you for listening. You know, keep doing that amazing work that you're doing. Start now. Start in your communities. Start in your neighborhoods. Start at home. You know, be patient with yourself. Don't think like it will happen in a day. Be patient with yourself. It starts slow, but just be committed. Trust in yourself. Trust in the people around you. Create networks. Collaborate with people, and change will come. That I
Hmm.
can guarantee you. So thank you.
Thank Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I know that we can't hear Maima, but Maima, any last words via chat or anything so we could amplify? Any last words? Anything you would want to share with us? Oh, so Maima says, thank you so much, Zugwai. I enjoyed every bit of this. And Kabota says, what's in my heart? See, when I say we got the right people for September series. I feel like Kabota, you need to maybe find a way to amplify. So this is me putting it out there. Please find a way. Maybe Mama needs to amplify what you're doing through dance. Maybe a piece will come up soon
No,
on this
true.
just
Yes.
and child.
Yes.
So I think there has to be some sort of collaboration. Thank
Yeah.
you so much,
Yeah.
Mama.
Can I just say one thing? Sorry, Ziguai.
Yes,
One thing I
please.
would say about Maima's work is, to be honest, the work that she's doing is so amazing because it says so much that we fail to say. And I do
Mm,
agree with you that that collaboration would be amazing because I feel through dance and expression, people get to see the human story. It's the story that's important. We can talk about policies, about law, and all these things, but what's the most important is the story, the human story, which what this is what Maima does so well. So I do
mm.
agree that's something that's important, and yeah, I look forward to more collaboration.
All right. So Mama is also looking forward to it, and I look forward to being there to actually get to see this and just have young people experience this. Thank you so much, Mama. We also appreciate you. Thank you for your time, your commitment. Thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for being that light for young women in Nigeria, in Africa. Thank you for being the first, for setting the pace and not getting tired, even when the space became saturated. Thank you for, I know that you mentioned it in passing, but for me, it means a lot. It's not so easy when you have people who have been there now, have people. See, you're teaching other people. Some people say it's competition, but she's doing it without seeing it as, and it means a lot.
Hmm.
I think it's something that I'm learning, and I just want to say thank you for being that light. We will always come back to you when we need the help. You'll always be that support system for us. Thank you again, Kabota. Thank you, Maima. Have a great rest of the weekend. Enjoy the rest of the week. Bye.
Thank you. You too. You take care. Bye.
Thank Bye. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for the September series of Zaza Development Initiative Mentorship Series. Living letters. I'm sure that you have seen why we call this living letters. Once again, thank you so much to Jemima Angulu and also Kabota Chipopola from Zambia. Thank you for sharing. Thank you to our audience for always being here every month. Please do not get tired of joining in. Like, comment, leave your comments and feedbacks. You can always rewatch this and also previous series. We have our series from February till date. So you could always go back, watch the clips. I'd also follow our short clips through the month, through the rest of the month. Leave your feedbacks, share with others who are not able to join in on the conversation live so that they could also learn. The idea of having this is so that we can learn at our own convenience. You never know who needs this at a particular time. You never know who you would be helping. And it doesn't matter if it's a, I know we're saying young Africans, but everyone can benefit from this. Younger, older, children. This is very accessible to children. I feel that we all can learn from the lessons that are being shared. Thank you so much. Never get tired of what you're doing. Do not get overwhelmed by the work, whether it seems like it's not working out. The whole idea is to always remember that you have a why. Keep focus on your why. What's the purpose? Why did you start? Why did you begin? Why are you still here? What do you intend to achieve? Sometimes, again, remember there are others who are also looking up to you. So stay on course, be dogged. And if you need support, please reach out to people. Never be ashamed of sharing the struggles you're going through. You're not alone in this. Thank you so much for joining in again. Have a great weekend and see you in October. You can always reach out to Zaza on LinkedIn, on Twitter, or X, if you need any form of formal or informal mentorship or advice, and we will be here. Thank you.